So I hear meow, meow, meow.
That's exactly that's our cat thinking he's dying after
I, I haven't
after
had a
he's
treat in 8 hours while you were sleeping.
well,
Please.
it's actually more like I haven't had a treat in 30 seconds. Please, I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die anyway.
Oh gosh, I love our cats. Oh my gosh.
I know they're so beautiful. And so they have so much cattiality.
That's and then we'll tell our listener you and Kimberly were out here in California for a
Yeah.
week. And when we think of cats, I think of we took you to a friend's ranch up in Ojai, California. And the highlight for me, I know different highlights because they had chickens and oranges and trees and horses and great food and great company. But they have a 22-pound Maine Coon cat that just I put her on me and she just melted into me. And I sat in a chair for 10 minutes and I was like, okay, my kingdom, don't tell my cats.
We will not we will not share with your
But
cats
I
that you are
think they
cheating on
could
them.
smell her on me when I got home. So
Well, I do have to say that was an incredible visit and trip and meeting uh, the owners of the ranch. Marvelous, marvelous people. Beautiful. One of the most beautiful settings for a ranch I've ever seen, and what they did with it. Um, and I do have to say, in many ways, that huge cat was a highlight because um, she was so big, so gorgeous, and so unusual. I mean, I have never, outside of literally lions and bobcats and cougars, I have never seen a cat this big.
well, you know Mo from our master circle.
Hmm.
She has a Maine Coon. They have a Maine Coon, and we went to visit them last spring. I get to do the same thing, and you reach to pick the cat. The cat is so big and so heavy, and I just put him like this, and they just melt. It was
Snuggles in.
absolutely spectacular.
It's really cool that they're a cat that big is so kind and friendly. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
He's Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council,
Good
and
morning, folks.
cats make me think of good friends.
Mm.
And good friends makes me think of you, my friend. And I've been thinking all week about doing the show. And yesterday I was listening to um, a guy that Scott Galloway, who I
Mm. That name is
absolutely
familiar.
absolutely love. He's a professor, but he has a couple of shows on the Vox Media Network, and he's smart and clever, and he's paying attention, and has a lot of thoughts about men and boys and his boys,
Hmm.
and he was talking about friends
Mm.
and the importance of friends, and I've been involved in deep discussions around friends over the years, and I thought that would be a great thing to talk about today, which is
I absolutely love that topic. I mean, one is it clearly does remind me of you and our visit there and the depth of our friendship, as well as the community that our friendship brings. The other piece that was really interesting for me, and when you mentioned this a little bit 10, 15 minutes ago, I I jumped on it. I had a group up here of 10 men yesterday, just sort of, it was supposed to be 3 hours. It turned into five, of just connecting and being in nature here and playing with the horses. And I had only met one of them previously.
mm,
All really kind, great, open men. And we were one of the main topics was friendship,
Mm.
you know, and
Were they all friends?
a few of them knew each other. There wasn't anybody that came that didn't know at least one or two other people, but they didn't all know each other prior
Mm.
to coming here. There was one person that was sort of the main contact person that helped pull everybody together. But one of the big issues that came up was friends and friendship and isolation and separation. And I'll just throw this out. I mean, one of the pieces that has happened for me over the last number of years, and I've shared this with a number of people, is that the depth of friendships that I've been able to been blessed with, I think would be the word, is that there are a number of men that I become friends with, and you clearly are one of the top in there, that my saying is I can trust you and these men with my life and with my wife on both levels. And what I mean by that is literally dealing with life and death, if that happens, because that does happen in all of our lives. And what I know, I mean, I do travel and I work, and what I know is that I have a number of men and that I could call and say, hey, Mark, Kimberly needs some help. Kimberly needs somebody to talk to. Kimberly needs a hand on this or a hand on that. And before you and a number of other men would even hang up the phone, you'd be grabbing your keys. And or whatever the best way to support would be. And it's like, I cannot tell you the peace that gives me inside. And you know, it is mind blowing to me, and I'm incredibly grateful for that level of friendship.
I am curious, the people that are listening, because I've always had, it feels like there's been one person at any era of my life. And I can think of people I've known for 50 years that I've lived here in Santa Barbara, right? There's a few people I've known them. They're not friends. They're friendly and we're friends. We would say, yeah, that's my friend. But that's different than we're talking about something very completely different. And it feels like there's an ebb and flow to those relationships, to friendships. And I'm thinking of one who comes to mind that I've known for 40 years, and I'll still get a text from him on occasion, just checking in, how you doing? So just like I like that, right? I like that. Yet I think COVID threw everything for a loop, for sure. But for the guys who are feeling, because where this is leading to me is around loneliness. And loneliness is such a huge problem right now. It's talked about a lot. And when you have a friend that you talk, we call them 2 a.m.ers, right?
Yes.
Right. It's the 2 a.m.er. Hey, I can't sleep on it. And you just say, hey, talk to me. I mean, that's we call it a 2 a.m.er. If you don't have a 2 a.m.er in your life, and even worse, if your spouse, your mate, is not your top of the list of your 2 a.m.ers, then the loneliness, I just, because I've always had that, I'm very outward, as you know, I've always had that.
Mhm.
But I'm also that guy when I come home, I'll be fucking left alone. Leave me alone. I want to be quiet. But
Yes,
man,
another time.
but have one friend, two. Now, Kimberly, lots of friends, but one. So having said that, the person who's listening right now who's going, man, I wish I had a friend like that. How do they get, how do you go get one of those friends? I've never had, I thought this would be an interesting conversation for those that are feeling that. How do you go find that friend?
Let me respond to that in a moment. I want to like, yes, and what you just spoke about. An interesting thing in the group yesterday was I did ask the question of, do you have a friend like that? Do you have a friend that you can trust on virtually any level? And only one person put their hand.
My point.
Yeah, to your point. And these men, I mean, they're all, creative, kind, sharp men. Half of them are getting their master's degrees as in counseling, and a couple others are like top. One person's a top level videographer, and another person is, a helicopter pilot in the Navy, and in the Army. They're really good men who are really accomplished,
You
and
might say
especially,
high performing.
yeah, and especially, and all of them are young. All of them were 30-ish plus or minus, maybe 35-ish plus or minus. So one, I'm just confirming and piggybacking on what you're saying around the need for this, and also the isolation and separation that happens. One of the biggest things, and actually, I think of our friendship. One of the biggest things that happens in our friendship is both of us are looking out for the other person. Both of us, neither of us are going, well, Mark, what I need in our friendship is, both of us are going, what do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And the underlying process of giving it's not out there much. It's not there very much. And so in a little bit more direct response to what you said is, I think there is a level of luck, meaning, you and I got introduced through Traver, and it was like, I wasn't seeking our friendship. It was like Traver talked to me, and then he knew you, and he went, oh, you two need to know each other, which is true. We did. So, but it was luck, at least the first meeting. And then it was like, oh, this is amazing. But then what happened was both of us actively pursued our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us neither of us were going, well, I'll wait till you call me. I'll wait till you call me. Or neither of us were doing that. Both of us went, this is good. Look, get your calendar out. And so I think that I think there's a piece missing at times with people, and And I honestly don't know if it's more with men than women or if it's a general piece. Um,
Well, let
of,
me
of literally
hold.
pursuing.
So when you say luck, you thank the gods. So I think that we've talked about the universe tapping you on the shoulder for all kinds
Yes.
of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe said, oh, these guys need to know each other. Oh, I'll, boom, I'll let Trevor know. And Trevor goes, yeah, he has a thought, and that happens. I believe that 10,000%. And it's our radar tuned, fine tuned enough to where we go, oh, and we pay attention, right? We don't just go, oh yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then I think we, just as elders, I can't not say elder without saying elders, not olders.
Exactly.
That we know how to do that. We're just living in a fine tuned life because
Right.
it's just part of it. Um, One of the things that Scott Galloway said just recently, I think I read it. I didn't hear him. I read it because I can see the words in my head. His admonition was to men. No, excuse me. It was Gary Vaynerchuk, because he gets a lot of these same hate, and it's more a little, I think it's the demo you're talking about, 35 and younger, maybe 25 to 35.
Mm-hmm.
And this is rampant in that age group. And he just says, get out there, meet somebody, talk to people, get outside, don't get out of your own thing. So I think what the feeling I got from that was, put yourself in situations where there are other people that will force you to interact with those other people, even knowing it is uncomfortable. They don't feel
Yes.
comfortable. I don't know what to say. Am I not good enough? I'm all the judge. I'm judging myself. Gee, my Instagram life, it doesn't look as interesting as their Instagram life. And there's all that. That's a different show. We're not doing that show.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of creating opportunities where you're out, like me, and like all of us have been inside during COVID, right? Or when we're outside, we're in our own bubble, and going out to where there's other people is still tenuous. We're doing an event next Saturday, and someone chimed in on the event page on Facebook and said, what are the COVID protocols? Because we're not comfortable being around people. I was like, just wear a mask,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be fine. So to that point of, rather than staying inside, at least you could get out, so the universe has a chance to put someone in your path.
Yeah, put somebody in front of you. Yeah.
Right.
And so I think there's that piece. I also, and this morning, I mean, I get up every morning at, I don't know, 5 or 5:30. And part of my morning routine is having coffee and reading numbers of different things. And a short article I read this morning had to do with, is it Gen Z? What?
Yeah, Gen Z. I call them Zoomers. Boomers
Yeah.
and Zoomers.
Got it. So, but it was like, the article was about lack of social skills,
Right.
because computer skills are incredibly high.
Right.
It's like the first generation that was born with
Digital natives.
technology. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good term. And and what they were actually talking about was some of the workplace stuff around social skills, and the social skills, according to this article, and I'm not saying this personally because I don't know, but this is according to the article, is all the tech skills are very high. Many of the social skills, apparently, people are struggling with that, which wraps around to stuff that you and I've talked about a lot, particularly around contact. And do we know, as people, how to make contact? And
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because when you said, "Do we know how to make contact?" I'm immediately thinking of the initiation in Austin when you took all the men before we walked into the corral. How do we make contact with these horses?
Mhm.
It was very specifically how to make contact with the horses, and you went through probably 3 or 4 things of what to do, and you kind of exploded, I think with me, maybe it was the day before, but you exploded some myths that I had on how the horse was reacting and misinterpreting them, and so it was
Mhm.
how to contact horses. So maybe we need to how to contact humans show.
Ooh. Well,
But it's the
interestingly
same
enough,
thing, isn't
it's
it?
not so different. Yeah.
No, exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess one of the questions, for the audience listening is, do you know how to make contact? Number one. Number two, are you willing to do that? Because there's a risk in it. I mean, there's a risk that you attempt to make contact and create an opening and nobody else step into it.
I want to know why sometime between 7:30 and 7:35 nearly every show, but I'm not an absolutist, so I'm not going to be absolute, but nearly every show, the show's title emerges.
Hmm. And what would the title be right now for you? Oh, I saw
How
you
to
writing it.
contact humans,
Yeah.
right? And then the 2 questions. And so so do you know how? So if you're counseling someone like right now, I mean, let's do this right now. How do you contact humans? Someone who's like, God, you guys, you're the elders. What do I do? I find myself in a situation. I'm back at work, or I'm at a mixer, or I'm at some, it's the official beginning of summer today. I'm at some kind of thing. I'm wildly uncomfortable.
Hmm.
What do I do?
Well, let me step back a moment because this very thing came up yesterday in this group of men. Again, I didn't know the men before yesterday morning. And, as per usual in a group, I would go around and do intros. And then we did a second round of saying, what do you want out of today? And out of the 10 men, 7 said, I don't know. I just want to be here and be present. And that part is really good. What they added to that, though, was I'm just going to sort of sit back and watch, see what happens.
Huh?
In one form or another. I mean, there were various ways that they spoke to that. And part of what I said, me as a horse person, and part of the reason they were here was to go up and work with the horses, which we did. And it was beautiful what happened. Was I always give this analogy. When we're riding a horse, you can either be an active rider and engaged. So keyword here is engaged, or you can be a passenger. And many people have gone to stables or dude ranches or those kind of things, and that's where they get some level of horse riding experience. But they're on horses that they go out on a trail, and the horses are head to tail, head to tail, head to tail, head to tail. And basically, if they want, they can essentially sit there and not even necessarily even hold the reins.
Do their
And
mail.
what?
Check their mail.
Check their mail. Yeah, exactly. Well, I've actually seen that where someone's writing and they're like checking their mail or they're talking on the phone. And they're a passenger.
Hmm.
And I actually brought that up to this group of writing and being in relationship and being an active participant versus being a passenger. And that active participation means a commitment to engage.
Mm,
And what was really cool about it is all the men went, "Oh, got it." And I mean, that changed the whole energy of the group, and virtually everyone engaged. Um, but it's like, are you willing to fully engage? Are you willing to engage in your life? Are you willing to engage in relationship? Are you willing to take that risk to engage? Are you willing to do that? And even, I mean, I have had many couples that I work with over the years, and the later part of my therapy journey as a therapist, if I'm working with a couple and one or both people are not willing to fully engage, then I will stop seeing them.
yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that, if someone comes in and they're having a bad day, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about repeatedly being unwilling to engage.
So this, so let's back up even further. Let's zoom out
Okay.
a little bit more. Why do we need friends? Why do we need these relationships? And I'm thinking if we could understand that, I have some answers and I know you do. But if we were to connect with someone who's thinking, who's having an issue with it, which is why we're here today, could say the intent, the end state of one of these friendships is so great that it's worth the discomfort, learning how to ride. I liked how you said rider, because when you said passenger, I think driver passenger. I like rider passenger better, a little better. That the benefit, right? We're goal oriented. I do a thing for it, the reason to get a thing, and that maybe they've never had a fantastic relationship. That's very possible. They haven't been around a high functioning relationship before, even, or not seen one at home, or they got an asshole boss or whatever it is, and they're like, fuck it, I don't want to do that. So when you say, do you know how? Are you willing to do it? Those are the two questions. Do you know? I would offer some. Do you know why you should do it? I don't. It's something. It's something. There's something in there.
Like, yeah, sort of. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is sort of bringing in. You're reminding me of Simon Sinek. What's the why? And
well, there's a book from a guy who's no longer a friend, but it was called Relationship Economics, and he said, what he talks about investing in relationships, where it's like we're always wanting to make withdrawals. Hey, I need this from you. I need this from you. I want a thing from a friend, as opposed to depositing in the goodwill account that I have with that friend. So even though he's not a friend anymore, we had a friendship severing thing, which happens. The idea of that book is still very valid. And so a way to think about it, and I did for years, is, am I making a deposit into this friendship and building up the goodwill? Goodwill act, do you know goodwill's a thing you can actually have on your books as a business? It's a thing you sell. When you sell, goodwill is part of it. Did you know that? It's a thing.
I didn't put it that way, but yes,
it is a thing. So when we invest, We expect a return on the investment. We don't expect to lose. We invest on the upside because we think we're going to get something from that. Whatever that is, satisfaction, in this case, friendship. So maybe a way to think about that is that I'm going to invest my time and energy, and the more I do that, the better I'm going to get at that. Hence, I will get the rewards of community and care and love and connection and all those things, which will sustain me into my late 90s, I hope.
Yes. Yes. So with what you said, and underneath that, what's the why for you? What's the reasoning, or the why? And I'm asking this specifically because I believe that you and I may have different whys. And because we see life a bit differently, which is part of our friendship, interestingly enough.
Mm.
It's part of what I value tremendously is, but in putting that together, what's the why for you?
Probably a couple things, but one is just the pure joy of having a friend. Having another human in your life is, to me, is pure joy. And when you're with your friend, and I'm going to look at my Kimberly, a lot of the stuff we do are friend things, right? Study together, right? They're like friends. I love that. And I'm, because I place such a high value on connection, that I'm aware all of the time, am I in connection or I'm not in connection?
Exactly.
Right. And so when I'm not in connection, I'm like, okay, what can I do to reestablish that? Something happened, and it could be, who knows what the fuck, right? It's just like, okay, just do that, and you're back. And that is such just a core feeling. And guess what, Dewey? It goes back to attachment.
Yes.
I know that for a fact, that it goes back to
yes.
My mom leaving me alone when I was 18 months old and 20 months old. And I went through that whole thing 10 years ago and got that all figured out, and then learned that's what I was manipulating her into, a false sense of connection. And I've worked through all that stuff. So now whenever when I sense connection, I just get a little, it's like, oh, I like that. That feels good. I like that. And it doesn't take much, right? To feel that sense of connection. So for those who don't have that, it is such a powerfully positive thing to have in your life. It's like not having water or sleep or breathing, or I think it's an essential element to life.
Yes, we are designed, and this is from an instinctual place, we are designed to be in relationship. Not being in relationship actually creates disease, creates depression, creates isolation. We have what's called, and this is from Steve Porges and Polly Bagel, we have what's called a social engagement system. So I'll say it again because I saw you cock your ear up there. Social engagement system, which actually creates health. It creates health, it creates happiness, it creates satisfaction, and in certain relationships, it actually creates babies. I mean, it's literally what creates life, and not just life as in pregnancy, but life as in are living a life that is truly living versus just being alive. And the distinction I make is you know, we can, for instance, we can breathe deeply enough to stay alive. This is a sane life, but it's not a real breath. A real breath is a deeper breath that allows us to live deeply and enjoy life. And that's what happens with relationships is that we can be isolated and be alive, but that's different than living. That's different than the depth of joy that you're talking about. And relationships actually heal. Relationships actually create happiness. Relationships create optimism. Relationships create creativity. Gosh, talk much. And so we, by design, are relational beings. And when we don't allow ourselves relationship, it's literally a way to starve ourselves.
I'm reminded of several shots in Avatar where I'm thinking specifically of the home tree and how they would plug into the home tree and how the energy would and how they would literally plug into one another. They'd take their tails and they'd do that, and you could see that life force. I think that's a metaphor for exactly what we're talking about.
Totally, 100%. And we do. I mean, every relationship is an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
And another interesting piece here, and there's a lot of research, for instance, around cancer. And cancer cells are those cells that are isolated cells and are not in relationship with the other cells of our body. And so there's no health to those cells. And then those cancer cells actually begin to split to try to have some level of relationship, but even the split cells, when they split, there's no relationship to the rest of our body. They're still isolated. And part of the treatment for cancer that people are looking at is how do we unisolate those cells so that so they can integrate with the rest of our body, and actually our immune system can work with them and deal with them. But it's like, so loneliness, isolation, depression, anxiety, even going so far as all of the domestic violence, all of the violence and mass shootings, all of those are based on lack of relationship.
So the Swedish killer, I forget his name, who went on the island and shot all those kids. We met the woman and actually worked with her for a year, who wrote that book about him. And her thing is, she wants to combat loneliness in the world. And that's she's on a mission to do that. So our listener who's stayed with us and has kind of identified with this a little or a lot, what challenge would be appropriate to give to them for this coming week as we go into the summer and lots of time to, and hopefully enjoy other people and be in social situations? What one baby step would you recommend?
I love that you just went up that way to get really, I love that you just got really concrete. My baby step would be one of two things. Actually, maybe two things. One is if you're in a relationship like a marriage or a partnership or have a boyfriend or girlfriend, however that is that you look at that relationship and ask yourself, what does that other person need? Not what do you need? What can you give that other person? And the challenge is to find a time this week between now and next Saturday to do something different than you have been doing. Maybe taking a walk in the woods, sitting on a beach, sitting outside on your deck and having just a chat. What is it because we all get so busy. The other challenge would be to reach out to at least one person and ask to have a coffee or breakfast or lunch or something. Doesn't mean you have to do it this week, but part of what happens is that we go, yeah, that other person will be so busy. They're waiting for you to do that too. They need you as much as you need them. Mm-hmm. So those would be my two challenges. I mean, oftentimes you talk about, wow, you and Kimberly just went and saw this great show. As for instance, and then we had this great dinner, and it's not about work. It's not about getting stuff done. I mean, both of you are super high achievers, and so are my Kimberly and me. It's like, can you stop and just go have fun with somebody? And also, are you willing to reach out and go to somebody you haven't spoken to and say, hey, how are you doing? I've been missing you. Let's grab a coffee.
And then there's the third, which is the random. You're standing. We have a thing here in Santa Barbara on Memorial Day weekend called I Modenari. It's the chalk painting festival. It's the largest one in the United States, and it's in front of the mission. It's all the pavement in front of the mission. We used to do that it's been around for years. And you standing there admiring some mind-blowing 3-dimensional chalk drawing that makes you want to
looks
dive
like you're gonna fall in a hole or something.
Yeah. The guy who the guy who was the first guy who did all that here in the States lives here in Santa Barbara. That's how it got started. So
how cool is that?
He's pretty amazing. But you'll be standing next to someone, and instead of just keeping your awe to yourself, just turn to them and say, this is pretty amazing.
Yes. Make contact. Yes.
Make contact. Hey, I love you, man.
Love you too. This was a great discussion. Thank you. And I want to put out one is I hope you have an incredible Memorial Day weekend. And also, I want to honor all the veterans.
Yeah.
And all the people who have supported our country and our ability for you and I to talk like this.
I love that. Love you, man.
Thank you. Love you.